Hello.
Andrew.
Hi, Amit. How are you doing?
Good.
Hello, everyone out there, and welcome to the Digital Growth Show. If you're new to the show, welcome. Thank you for kind of spending the next hour and a bit. Although we always try and clip it at 45 minutes, it usually kind of pushes through that. And if obviously you've joined us before, welcome back. Happy to have you. And obviously, if you're watching a rerun, even the timing is a bit relevant, I suppose, if you're watching a rerun. But welcome to the Digital Growth Show. How's your week been?
Yeah, really good actually. Busy. I mean, it's it feels like normal life is kind of resuming again after the challenges of the last few months. So yeah, pretty good. What about yours?
Yeah, good. I'd say kind of been out more in more meetings this week, physical meetings, even though obviously physical meetings are this far apart. I'd say the most interesting thing to change behavior is the shaking of hands, because as much as that doesn't happen in other parts of the world, I've been shaking people's hands for the last 20 years, so it feels very strange not to kind of shake hands. So yeah, I think that's one of the things, the nuances now of working.
Yeah, there is that sort of uncomfortable moment when you first see someone, and you're not quite sure whether you should be shaking hands with them or not, right?
Yeah. I think as guys, like a fist bump is working quite a bit. I've had some people offer up their elbows, which I'm not sure about that, because that still feels like you're breaking a 2-meter rule at that point. Your elbows are definitely shorter than reaching out with your fist. But yeah, I guess that would be as we meet more people will become accustomed to it.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, actually, I'm just trying to work out whether kind of business cards are deemed sort of sterilized enough to hand out, because I've not met anyone I don't know yet. So yeah, so that might kind of prove interesting.
I met someone, and I didn't even offer up a business card. So yeah, I imagine if you're in the business card game at the moment, you're probably panicking a bit. Perhaps finally it's that people have been trying to push that digital card for years, right? Oh, this is your all-in-one digital card, no need for business cards. So perhaps they're rubbing their hands at the moment. But yeah, I don't know, actually. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah, LinkedIn, usually that's what I say. Find me on LinkedIn.
That's right. Yeah, I think they're either panicking at the moment or innovating, but I'm not sure there's many kind of sitting in between.
Yeah, that's true.
Cool.
I should have said as well, this is third episode in the series. So this is our kind of final cut, as it were, on the HubSpot trilogy. This obviously, we've been speaking previous weeks about HubSpot and kind of power of it, and we decided to dedicate the last kind of 2 weeks to that, really. And obviously, when we're talking about something a lot, it's better that we explain it a bit more in detail. So we had the sales kind of components at the first week. Second week was very much based on marketing, and obviously this week we are talking service, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think it's I mean, it's quite interesting. I obviously, I share with the family, what we're going to be talking about in the show, and was told very politely by my 11-year-old daughter that service is really boring and it's not as exciting as maybe how the CRM or marketing sounds. So potentially where I genuinely feel as if we're leaving almost the best till last. However, 11-year-old kids out there clearly disagree. So
the razzmatazz that is service, or I guess customer. I mean, I think if we reposition it as customer and obviously look at that model, I mean, hopefully we won't bore you.
No, exactly.
I guess you've got a choice. You can click stop and delete the file, or you can disconnect, as it were.
Yeah, I did find myself doing a bit of a sales pitch. So kind of like trying to convince her that no, service measurement is like super exciting and it's so important. And
that's it.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it works, but at least I've practiced for today. So let's see.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we can definitely do that. Well, we can see. I mean, everyone's a critic, right? Simple as that.
Yeah.
So I think we know that anyway. But yeah, all good.
Awesome. So yeah, wonderful. So guys, I just want to throw this out there. You're laughing at the same thing I am. I think it's quite funny.
Yes.
We just had a comment telling us we talk too much and we need to start with the main topic. So thank you for joining our free show and giving us our worldly advice.
Thank you.
Much appreciated. Yeah. I guess I guess Andrew, I think what's kind of important when we talk about kind of service measurement and things like that really is how this kind of fits within that sort of HubSpot ecosystem.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, like you mentioned, this is part of obviously our kind of HubSpot trilogy, I guess. So I think let's kind of refresh ourselves, and I'll just share my screen for a second, and just let's go back to the flywheel. So we spoke about this last week, and I guess why it's important to kind of mention this again is just obviously there might be people tuning in today who didn't tune in before, but also just to really show how service sort of integrates with HubSpot's ecosystem. So that kind of, the flywheel image that's, on the right-hand side of your screen right now, this was something that, Brian Halligan, the CEO of HubSpot, one of the co-founders, he launched about just over a year and a half ago, I guess, at one of their events. And what he was saying is like the old model of the funnel was, maybe not applicable in today's business world, right? He said customers were almost too far down the funnel and in levels of importance. And instead, where they should be is right in the center of all of the activity that a business needs to follow, right? And so obviously with this flywheel, what he's done here, more HubSpot have since been using as a real kind of model when going out there and promoting their services and the platform itself is to show that customers are at the heart of marketing. Maybe to generate leads, sales when obviously we're trying to close a client or a customer, and then obviously once a client is closed and becomes a customer, how that operational element in terms of service is then applied, right?
Yes.
So I think it's quite interesting in terms of how this kind of fits in. I think it makes enormous amounts of sense. And like I said, customers at the heart of this really kind of allows us to kind of understand HubSpot's methodology, which is that they want to really kind of help companies to grow better. And in HubSpot's world, how they kind of imagine this playing out, and it does, I mean, we've got data now to prove this as well, is that when you do have full alignment between marketing, between sales and service, you do really start to see real kind of company growth, right? And I think that's, and the beautiful part of all of this with platforms like HubSpot is this now becomes much more measurable, right? Companies can start to understand exactly how this plays out. Exactly. So I guess what I wanted to show and ask you, Andrew, is when we're talking about this, what is it we're talking about? Are we talking about kind of, service being for retention, or is it being for kind of referral?
I think I mean, first and foremost, it's a kind of huge umbrella, isn't it? Right. So, as far as customer service, customer satisfaction, moving into customer retention, customer referrals. So I think even when you and I were kind of prepping for the show, you're kind of pulling in various elements of what is customer service, what's important, where does that lay down as far as, okay, retention of existing customers, retaining those, and then gaining referrals, and almost, this at this time is even more crucial to kind of success of, continued business. So I'd say, they're equally as important, as it were.
Yeah, and I think there's obviously kind of a number of reasons for this, but I think referrals and reviews and all things like this have been kind of really, really important, right? Because I guess with technology, with people kind of walking around with multiple devices, it's now pretty easy to work out whether this is a company you want to work with or not, right? Whether it's a company you want to make a purchasing decision from. And I guess, and I guess all of that sort of plays into the same hands, because if you are getting, kind of really strong, I guess customer feedback, or whether you're just, maybe you're not even getting any feedback, but you're just looking after your customers really well. A byproduct of all of this now are things like referrals and reviews, right? Online reviews. Yes. So Yeah, so I think I agree with you. I think it's really important. I think what's probably more important in some respects, and I guess it depends whether it's B2B or B2C, and I think that's something that we need to look at. You know, I guess in a B2B world where perhaps you've got a fewer number of customers, retention, I guess, becomes even more important at times like this, right? When there's kind of business challenges that people are facing, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think and also I think when people are making tough decisions, perhaps budgets are being squeezed, and people are looking to acquire new business, that referral play really comes into kind of vision, because essentially there's a nervousness associated to trying new things. Sometimes people are almost being forced into trying new things, right, at the moment because of the current situation. And obviously, change, everyone has changed. So if there's an element where, I've worked with this organization, I've worked with these individuals, and you've got that solid referral, this starts to play a key part. And even, to be fair, as you mentioned, things like reviews, where they're not necessarily a direct referral, but it's a group of individuals that obviously have, a similar kind of champion, as it were. Yeah, you should work with company X. They're better than company Y, or I've worked with company X for the last 3 years. You kind of take these on board, similar to things like customer testimonials as well.
Yeah.
When we're talking about reviews as well.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, I'm just going to stop the share for a second, I think, while we kind of load up the next part. But guys, just a reminder that this show is kind of, very interactive, and please do send sort of questions and comments and things like that through as well. Again, it helps us kind of direct some of the conversation. This isn't a scripted show, so, we want to really kind of provide as much kind of value back. So please feel free to kind of participate as well. Andrew,
we've got some quizzes though today as well, right? We really want some participation.
We do. We really.
Although we've called it a quiz, and I don't think we have a prize. So I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure how quizzical that is if we don't have a prize.
No, this is true. So I'm going to just pop up my screen again for a second. There we go. And so I guess this quiz question number one, even though it's not really a question, but I guess, when we're talking in the world of kind of retention and customer satisfaction, we've got this kind of, obviously 5X, in bold kind of message on the screen here. But I guess what we're wanting to ask, guys, is really what you think that 5X is about. So let me just launch this question. So we want your kind of feedback here. So when we're talking about sort of 5X, in the context of customer satisfaction, what does that actually mean? When we kind of relate this to business. So yeah, guys, send in whatever you think that means. Do you think it's that you need to spend 5 times the amount of customers to make them happy? Do you feel the cost of acquiring a new customer is 5X the cost of retaining an existing one? Or do you think the final answer, customers are 5 times more likely to refer you to another company if they're satisfied with your business? Excellent. So we've got some answers coming in there. Cool. We'll keep that running for another kind of 5 or 10 seconds or so.
Yeah, 5X isn't the number of extra grey hairs that you have during COVID, right?
I tell you what, it actually might be. Again, if there was an image of me that was out there recently, thanks to the bio video, and I got some positive feedback, let's say, on that. Thanks, guys. So let's end that poll there. And interesting. Let me share the results. So most people have gone with the last answer, which is customers are 5 times more likely. And actually, I'm going to be honest with you, that might be completely
true. We did just make it up, though.
We did just make that one up. The one that let's call it the right answer. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if if there was more than one. But I mean, the point here was actually that the cost of acquiring a new customer is 5 times the cost of retaining an existing one. There's a lot of data about this out there. I think Gartner have released some data on this. Salesforce have, I believe HubSpot have. There's so much data that kind of almost relates to exactly that same percentage. And so I guess that's a really kind of important point, right, Andrew? Because I think we kind of know that this data exists. And when we talk about it, we still kind of almost look at ourselves, or, companies look at themselves and say, well, okay, that's great. And we know that we spend a lot of money, acquiring new customers. But, what can we do to kind of retain other ones? And obviously things like customer service and those elements are important. But, there was someone I used to work with here a long time ago. And one of the things that he says, look, if you measure something, something happens, right? And I guess what was missing, and I guess is a relative kind of newcomer in the kind of technology game. If you kind of consider, say how marketing and sales is involved, is really kind of service measurement, right? We're still used to going into, whether it's a restaurant or going somewhere and kind of filling out bits of paper. And I know it's changed in many cases, but, that still happens, right? And so, it kind of hasn't almost evolved at the same speed or in the same way as, as other kind of forms of, I'd say, marketing or feedback or customer interaction, I'd say, right?
Yeah, and a lot of this customer feedback or kind of satisfaction is almost done on a public forum. So if there's no ability to actually give your feedback constructively to an organization, they tend to jump on social, and kind of will have either a positive or negative feedback from a customer satisfaction perspective, or it may be a review site. There's obviously a lot out there. So if you don't have a mechanism in place to at least kind of understand how your customers are feeling about their experience, and I'd say that almost in the B2B space, that obviously lags a bit behind as well. I think in the B2C space, from a consumer perspective, when you're looking at, perhaps a restaurant or, retail experience, a lot of the time that there is that customer feedback and an opportunity to collect data. Whereas in the B2B space, as you said, the technology hasn't really been pushed in that space.
Yeah. And actually, I think what's happened as a kind of consequence of maybe technology not being at the same pace of maybe the demands of the consumer is that's where these review sites have really kind of, they've almost had an open playing field, right? Yeah. So if you look at, your TripAdvisors for the hotel industry and the restaurant industry, where else were people going to give their feedback? Because I'm not sure, I guess, customer feedback's obviously always been important, but if companies aren't providing that ability for their clients to give them that feedback, and sometimes, a customer just wants to, and I think TripAdvisor a long time ago, and for many years have said, actually, they get more positive reviews than they do negative reviews. Yeah. Right. And so it's not just about, having a mechanism where people are, wanting to complain, or a forum for that, right? But I feel as if, that's been that big divide. So cool. I'm gonna move on to the next question. And guys, we're not going to do this the whole way through, but I think it's fun. I'm not sure you guys all agree, but right. So I'm just gonna, here we go. So the next number on the screen here is 84%, and we'll give you a little bit of hint for this one. So this is actually Salesforce data that we've taken this one specifically. So again, guys, next question. Let me launch it. In the context of customer satisfaction, what does that 84% relate to? And is it 84% of clients value the experience with a company as much as the product or service that they actually deliver to that client? B, clients believe that a supplier is only honest 84% of the time. Got some text missing there, I think. Or is it C, 84% of clients repurchase if they are happy with the service provided? Great.
Yeah, it's not 84% of, what percentage of Andrew's face covered in hair? It's not that.
It's not that. I was super tempted to actually put that in, if I'm honest with you, but there we go. I'll leave that running for a few more seconds, guys. So if you do want to participate, please.
I quite like at the moment. Obviously, we can see some of these results kind of burning through at the moment, and I like the honesty play. 0 have chosen clients believe that a supplier is 84% honest 84% of the time.
Yeah, which is because that's 100%, right? So
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. So actually, here you go, guys. as you can see, so most of you have said 84% of clients repurchase if they are happy with the service provided. Again, that could be true, Andrew. So that was we needed to make our false answers.
We found a fatal flaw in our quiz. Well, yeah, actually, to be fair, the answer that we're providing is obviously from credible sources. So it's not just myself and Amit cooking up the answers. This, in this case, is directly from Salesforce, previously from Gartner. So it's actually 84% of clients value the experience with the company as much as the product or service.
Which I think, and actually, I love the fact that, I mean, to be honest, when I heard that for the first time recently, again, while we were kind of looking at, some data for the show prep.
Yeah.
And again, we kind of, when we look at things like that, that's not an obvious answer, right?
No, no.
Obviously, when you're buying a product or service, you care about a product or service. But that Salesforce data, which comes from thousands of different sort of, survey results, I think is really interesting. And I think it's that experience, right? And I think that comes down to maybe supplier intent, right? If you're a supplier and you're actually genuinely are providing a really good experience, perhaps the results aren't potentially there, but every part of your process and your sort of customer interaction is really positive, then I feel as if, as a customer, you value that, right?
Yeah, I think even. Yeah, go on.
And I was going to say, you don't, potentially sit there, waiting for somebody to make a mistake, right? I think you kind of almost assume that stuff happens, but as long as I think a company's genuine, the people that you're interacting with are genuine, and like I said, positive intent is there. It's interesting. I feel, it's powerful, but I think it actually makes a lot of sense when you kind of look at it like that.
Yeah, I mean, it may be kind of that analogy if you go to a restaurant and the service experience, the customer experience was incredible and the food was okay. I mean, you probably like to give it another chance versus if you've got an incredible food and the service was terrible, you probably wouldn't go back.
True.
Unless it's a French restaurant, because there's always terrible service in French restaurants, but that's just amazing. Part of it.
Amazing. We have 2 viewers from France. You do know that, right?
Yeah, I know. I realize. Yeah. Just put that out there. There's a brilliant advert at the moment that there's a kind of all the French sommeliers that are tasting this new sparkling wine, and they're all speaking in French, and it's all the bubbles, the aroma, and everything. And then the last guy goes, "Where's it from?" And they go, "England." He goes, "Angleterre," and just throws it. Quite funny.
Awesome. So guys, I think we've kind of spoken about obviously the importance of kind of referrals and reviews and positive customer feedback and customer satisfaction and the impact of that. I think let's kind of dive into how HubSpot can support this process, Andrew. And again, I'm going to switch back over to a slide here, but let's talk about kind of, again, HubSpot's journey with the Service Hub. So, as you can kind of see on your screens here, HubSpot have a lot of different features, and we've gone through the marketing piece, we've gone through the sales and the CRM piece over the last couple of weeks. If you haven't watched those videos, they're on the website. But, service, I guess here, from a HubSpot perspective is kind of, HubSpot's newest member of the family. Right. And I guess you can tell that from the fact that there's only, very limited kind of options that are in the platform on the back of it. But we've been using this actually from day one. So, again, I think from a Nexa perspective, we kind of understood the value of retention, but service measurement, especially in that kind of B2B sector, is really kind of challenging, right? And I think as soon as HubSpot, announced that there was now a product that kind of helped us, we wanted to explore it, and actually the journey's been really good. So we want to kind of share some of that with you guys as well. But when we kind of look at this, and one of the features, and we've used this from time to time, HubSpot have looked at the ticketing feature and said, okay, we need to do ticketing with a difference. But when I even mention things like ticketing, Andrew, what's your, what kind of comes to mind when you think about, online tickets or website tickets? And
Yeah. I mean, I think people kind of, naturally move to that, perhaps more of a tech-based environment. where there's something wrong with something, or you're obviously, you know, want to go online and you speak to somebody and you raise a ticket, and then obviously, you know, it's very web-based, let's say. You would go to a dedicated space, raise a ticket, sit back. You know, I'm thinking of, you know, domains, emails, all this kind of stuff. So yeah, it feels, I'd say prior to knowing obviously what this has to offer, that was very much the thought process for ticketing.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly the point, because I think in the kind of tech world that we're in, we're very used to ticketing systems.
Yeah.
You know, bug reporting, all that kind of stuff, you know, where you need a mechanism to go back and tell, I mean, HubSpot got a great ticketing system.
Yeah.
But when we, and I think what HubSpot were smart here is when they looked at ticketing as a concept, they said, well, actually, this isn't just about, you know, reporting issues or reporting bugs. You know, this might be somebody who's mentioned something on social media, right? Whether it's Twitter or LinkedIn, you know, they might have mentioned something that might need some attention. And what this kind of system does is almost, I think the nice part of it is that it's not called ticketing, right? I think it's, the way they kind of defined it is that actually this is, you know, perhaps an action that needs addressing, right? Or some sort of input from a customer that needs addressing. And what they've done is they've, you know, made it really easy for anyone within an organization, which I think is important, but anyone within an organization itself to raise an internal ticket. Okay, so if you're looking after the social media and someone kind of, you know, mentions that there's a negative comment or whatever, you know, you can just create an internal ticket, and, you know, maybe your customer success team see that ticket and then, you know, can obviously respond to whatever that issue was.
Yeah.
But I think what they've also done is, you know, you can use this product again as a customer facing ticket as well, right? And if you look at how banks work today, if you phone your bank and have an issue, you know, with something, what they're actually doing is they are actually raising a ticket, even if they're saying, we're going to look into this and come back to you, right?
Exactly,
and this is exactly what, so, you know, ticketing is that kind of, look, we're going to kind of look at what, you know, whatever the problem is or whatever the situation is, and we're going to come back to you. And the larger the organization, the harder this becomes to manage, right? So, you know, if you've got multiple offices in multiple countries, you know, and maybe it's someone in a different country that looks after this specific issue, you know, it's this kind of system that really streamlines that entire process, right?
Yeah, and we've seen, you know, in real cases of clients where customer service engagement has increased as far as the way that I can communicate with you as a brand or a company. So that might be through email, through live chat, through a bot, through email, WhatsApp, etc. But as that's increased, the technology inside the organization hasn't necessarily increased or caught up with that. So we're actually engaged in a few projects like that at the moment, where we're kind of, you know, trying to pull in all of those conversations, have escalation policies in there, and allow the organization to successfully manage that customer feedback. Right,
absolutely. I think then that's a really important point again, that you know, there's so many different avenues now where people can provide feedback.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think you can just direct people to maybe a phone line now, or just you know, a website and say, right, register all of your issues there. No one's going to listen, right? People are only going to use the platforms that they're comfortable with. No, I think you do raise a great point. I think the nice part of you know, what HubSpot have done with this tool specifically is just for measurement of time. So, you know, if things aren't handled or managed very efficiently, escalation policies and procedures are kind of embedded in this. It's all driven by that kind of nice workflows environment that we demoed last week. But you know,
all linked back to the CRM. So you have the ability to understand, you know, in a singular pane view, what's happened previously with this customer. Is this basically a customer that has a genuine concern, or is it something that they've been, you know, raised previously before and you've resolved? You know, you have everything else connected that we've spoken about over the last couple of weeks to this service environment.
Yeah, absolutely. And just obviously the fact that you can measure time and create some KPIs and metrics around this internally, I think plays a big role in this. The next part of HubSpot's service feature is the surveys. And again, I absolutely love this, because I think this has been a bit of a game changer for us. But, you know, I guess what we wanted to show here is on HubSpot, it's super easy now to create, you know, different types of surveys. And you know, just by clicking on a surveys button, you can now create kind of, measure customer loyalty by creating a Net Promoter Score survey. If you want to kind of measure quality of customer support, or you wanted to see feedback on a specific department, or if you just wanted that kind of, smiley face measurement system, yeah, exactly. I should have called it that, right? It's not called the smiley face thing, right? Sorry.
That's okay. That's fine. Happiness meter. It always, anytime I see this, so it reminds me when you land in Saudi Arabia, at immigration, if you remember, there's actually a happiness button in front of you. So yeah, I've never seen anyone brave enough to say that they're unhappy with their experience.
just as they land in
just
Saudi,
as they enter the country.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. And then I just moved on, just to go into the NPS side of things as well. Super easy to make an NPS survey, which I think is the difficulty half the time. I don't for a second believe that any company doesn't want feedback from their customers. I think everyone sort of values the importance of that.
Amit, it might be worth just kind of mentioning from the NPS system, because I know when we first implemented it, I didn't know what it was. I think a lot of people may not understand what that is. So, okay. I mean, what is that really? What is the NPS system? And obviously, HubSpot make it so easy for you to do this. So, what is an NPS system, mate?
Sure. So I guess my simplest way of describing it, and I'm sure everyone's received an email like this after you've either bought a product or received a service. But essentially, you might get an email that pops in that just says, "Hey, your opinion matters to us. How likely is it that you would recommend, X, so your company, for example, to a friend or colleague, right?" Yeah. And normally it's a scale of 1 to 10, 0 to 10, and 0 is that you're, not likely to recommend them at all, which means you're, deeply dissatisfied with whatever's been provided. And all the way up to a 10, where you're extremely likely to recommend that sort of company or product or service, whatever you acquired. And what happens here is normally it's one touch, one click, that data comes in, and then it's normally up to the company what they do with that, right? So if they're tracking the emails, they'll be able to, respond accordingly. I think what I like about HubSpot's NPS system, and if you kind of just look at the screen here, this is genuinely how easy it is to create this kind of survey, is that it's super easy to create. Okay, and from a deployment perspective, you've got multiple options. So whether you want to kind of host that on a web page, whether you want to kind of send it via email, again, you've got the freedom to do that. From a kind of survey perspective, you can sort of customize whichever elements, the subject lines, all of those things, whatever's kind of important to your business. And the feedback is measured in sort of 3 very kind of simple areas. So, 0 to 6 score would be a detractor. This is someone who's maybe very unhappy. A 7 to 8 is someone who's passive. So they're neither delighted nor they're kind of dissatisfied. Maybe they've just got perhaps what they've expected. But a promoter is potentially a customer who's, deeply satisfied with the process, happy with what's been provided, whether it's a product or whether it's a service, and they're happy and they want to share that with you. And then you get a choice of, okay, who does this survey need to go to? And the nice thing about, I think you mentioned, Andrew, this is linked to the CRM. So if somebody does become a customer, they receive a survey. It's quite important to kind of understand at what point they receive that survey, right? Yeah. So, if somebody signs a contract today, you don't want to send them a survey out tomorrow if whatever you're delivering takes a week or 2 months to deliver, right? Yeah. Because they're not going to have an answer, right? They're neither kind of, here or nor there. So it's important to kind of align this survey with when services and products are being delivered. Yeah. And the other thing I really like about this system is just the fact that you can now create triggers on the back of those results. And I think we've always, I guess all of us have kind of second guessed what happens to maybe a manual feedback form when it's filled out in a restaurant, and if you're kind of very unhappy, you're that customer that's complained during a meal, the food's not been good, the food's been cold, whatever it is. And then, you're hoping that by filling out that sort of customer feedback form, because a manager doesn't happen to be available, that, it ends up in the right hands, right? And it ends up in the hands of somebody that can take action on this, right? And come back to you and tell you that you're important and that they're perhaps sorry and these were the reasons. HubSpot take all of that manual process out of this. And what they do is if somebody does give you a, say, 0 to 6 rating, the escalation policy and procedures that are driven on the back of this are very different to if somebody gives you a 9 or a 10, right? Yeah. And so it can go to different people. In our company, for example, if it's a 9 or a 10, this gets shared internally, it gets shared to the management, but so does a 0 to a 6, but with the very different kind of messaging triggers and action points, I guess, right? Yeah. And the nice part of this is within HubSpot, and we've been talking about HubSpot being an open system where, you know, anyone in the organization can come in and start looking at data. That's not the case with a Service Hub, because they do understand that, you know, sometimes employees may not want people to see data. So the Service Hub is based on on a very kind of limited license perspective, and only those people that really need access to the data can see it. So again, you're protecting the integrity of the organization, I guess, more than anything else with this.
I think also as well, I mean, it's important to say that it's a multiple touch point that this kind of starts to go out. So the first NPS survey that goes out, obviously, you know, maybe that 2 months in, but then you still want to understand is your customer still happy? You know, 6 months down the road. So again, this is used. There's that consistent 0 to 10, and you can kind of then start to measure. You know, perhaps if you had a bit of a shaky start and you see an improvement, or perhaps if you kind of started really well and you've continued to go well, or if you've dropped off. Just that element of consistency just allows you to make some decisions, obviously.
Yeah. And I guess I think what's interesting here as well, we mentioned this at the start of the show, but you know, that kind of B2B, B2C perspective. Yeah. I guess NPS has been used predominantly by B2C companies until now, right? I mean,
yes.
I think, yeah. And I think HubSpot, for me, were amongst the first who said, actually, no, this needs to be B2B as well as B2C. I mean, a customer is a customer, irrespective of, you know, what side of the fence they kind of lie on, I guess, right, Andrew?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think obviously the interesting factor is as well that to a certain extent, the individuals that are perhaps implementing the sale or the actual product or service are different from the person that may have recommended the sale. The experience might be different. There may be different personnel that are handling that as well. So, you know, you get a true understanding of where things are at. You know, and obviously there's other deciding factors associated to this. We take the NPS score into consideration, the communication prior to that point with the individual and the organization, obviously. So I think you know, and I think the nice thing here, as you've mentioned, is just that it's so easy. You know, they've created this a lot like the other elements of HubSpot. They've made it so intuitive, and they've pretty much thought of, I wouldn't say everything, but it's difficult to fault them as far as things that are missing. And then if there are things that perhaps there's a gap, there's that whole ecosystem that can be plugged in. So obviously that is important to look at as well.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm sure part of their thinking, I don't think they've ever published this, is how do you kind of create a system that requires the least amount of IT involvement as possible, right? So again, you know, so you've got different departments that can really kind of look after, you know, important parts of the business that they are responsible for without kind of, you know, having shared accountability with others, I guess. You know, and I think that's such an important part of this.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm just going to move on to the next bit, Andrew, because I want to have some time for some Q&A after. But again, we spoke about the NPS side of it. Another feature within HubSpot is the smiley happiness index. I found a hybrid of your version of mine. Similar kind of thing, guys. So, you know, again, super easy to create these. And I think where this is important or interesting, I guess, is where you'd use it, right? So you wouldn't typically use this if someone's bought a product or service. But if they've engaged with your business in a maybe perhaps different area, right? If it's maybe the response to a ticket, right? Or some sort of feedback. I think that's where something like this becomes useful. And Andrew, you mentioned that use case of, you know, Saudi immigration when, you know, someone's perhaps keeping an eye on what you're pressing. But this isn't designed to be like that, right? This is again, very much designed to really kind of provide insights and data to an organization about specific parts of their process, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think the thing is that when it does come to potentially, a support mechanism, when there are issues that are being raised, the speed of something being resolved, for example, the overall experience, the overall handling. I mean, I think one of the companies that I mean really goes into real depth with this, I think, is the Amazon Care. If any of you have kind of had the misfortune to, and I'd say Amazon Care in the US, I'm not quite sure about here, but definitely in the US, the kind of the support and customer service, a lot of it is obviously based on data, like a lot of part of their other part of the business. So they're continually kind of making sure that you're happy and whatever you've raised has been resolved. And obviously a lot of these tech-focused companies have had access to these tools actually for many years. So if you look at, some of the other big players like PayPal and perhaps some of the other services that you're talking about, monetary transactions online, they've been available. But what HubSpot's been able to do now is make it available to everybody. So, pretty quick, you can start to understand not only from an NPS system, so as far as customer experience, onboarding, or making sure that you're retaining them and kind of working with them, but also other elements of the business that they may interact with. How happy are they, right? As far as the engagement there.
Yeah, and I think look, there's an important difference, I guess, between, again, HubSpot's happiness survey compared to the kind of independent little machines that you see, from place to place nowadays, right? And I'm glad it kind of stops here on the screen, because again, similar to NPS, what you can now start to do is escalate different actions on the back of it, right? Exactly. So again, if you're using this within digital tools, like your website, maybe like your, your kind of maybe ticketing system or whatever it is, the fact that somebody can respond by email or, wherever this is published, can link back into your CRM. So if you do get somebody who does press the unhappy button, you can now start to kind of, again, escalate this, right? Again, go to your customer success team, get them to perhaps, speak to this person. But that key point is that we know who the individual is. Whereas where you find these in isolated systems, I mean, I just ignore these now, if I'm honest with you, whether I'm kind of happy or dissatisfied, purely because what's going to happen on the back of it, so no one's going to reach out to me and say, by the way, I saw that you pressed that red button, and we're really kind of sorry. That just doesn't happen. So, I think that's why I quite like how HubSpot have done this, as opposed to, again, some of those kind of independent systems, which may just give general kind of sentiment analysis, right? Okay, are people generally happy or maybe unhappy? But again, how do you make those people that are unhappy happy? You can't, right? You've lost that opportunity because you don't know who they are.
Very true. Yeah. I mean, I think there's as you said, I think it falls into the sentiment side of things. So if you've got 100 people walking through your door, 90 of them are unhappy, obviously you've got a bit of an issue, but you don't necessarily know who those unhappy people are. So are they the people that are always unhappy, or, you have no data on them? So at least this way, there's a way to manage, track, interact, and take the opportunity to act on it. That's what it gives you.
Yeah, and I think the next part of that is, okay, fine, you're unhappy, but what were you unhappy about? Right? Exactly. Was it the process? Was it the person who you were dealing with? These things are important, and if, like I said, you can get a gauge. Okay, I guess the only gauge you're getting is somewhere along the line something's broken or not working.
That's right. Yeah.
But then you still got to go and figure it out. So you're losing potential time, annoying potentially more customers by not really being able to kind of drill down and understand why. And I think that's quite important. Again, how HubSpot do this, and again, I think we'll see a nice kind of application of this. And this is really in that kind of last part of HubSpot Service Hub. And this is the knowledge base. And do you want to kind of talk about this for a second, Andrew, just to give people a kind of insight into what really a knowledge base is?
Yeah, sure. So I think that obviously, as you start to collect data and as you start to understand a bit more about, what is it you're your customers or your clients actually want, what are the answers they need. HubSpot have made it very easy to allow you to, you know, decipher that yourself. So by kind of having this knowledge base, you're building exactly what it says, a knowledge base of answers effectively. So that may be, and we'll see in a minute on how HubSpot do this, as far as, you know, what are you looking for? Are you trying to do X? Are you trying to do Y? And also you can use this data and the answers and the responses that people put in to determine, is there any gaps perhaps in you know, something that you're providing from a product or service. So I think you know, the knowledge base itself is a platform that grows. So as you grow, it grows as well.
Yeah. And again, I think just to show you, I mean, this screenshot's purely there just to show you that, again, anyone in a company can just build a knowledge base using HubSpot's tools. You know, it's, again, very kind of non-IT focused. Andrew, you referred to HubSpot's knowledge base. And again, if you guys haven't seen this before, this is quite good to see. So, you know, again, it's a web page. It's a web page that kind of sits on your website domain. And really it can be that kind of, you know, help depository or repository, sorry. And if you've got, you know, and I think something like a knowledge base is really handy for, you know, maybe the types of businesses that have multiple types of customers. So do you deal with merchants? Do you deal with end users? You know, whatever that kind of looks like. But if you perhaps spend a lot of your time, you know, dealing with the kind of questions that can be answered by, you know, having this information kind of available and easily found, that's where you know, this kind of system really has an impact, right? And just from that efficiency perspective.
Yeah, the customer service team can also refer back to the knowledge base. So this is a great tool for them to, you know, implement from a kind of feedback perspective. This is also can be implemented into things like bots. So if you're kind of out of office hours, as it were, you can direct people to this knowledge base, and hopefully they may be able to answer some question previously. I mean, that's a big, I think from a customer service perspective, that's actually a big ask, especially in this part of the world. But they like to try and, you know, allow you to solve the problem yourself. If it's a problem that's known or an issue that, you know, individuals perhaps get caught up on, again, it's, I mean, you know, when it comes straight away, for example, when you know, when COVID first hit, we wanted to start implementing and integrating not only like the webinar that we're doing now, we want to integrate Zoom with our HubSpot. So we went straight away to kind of knowledge base, the forum. Okay, who's done this before? It was relatively new as well, so it's kind of interesting to get the different feedback. But we used that knowledge base, you know, to find out. I mean, thankfully we've got Zara in our team as well, who's effectively our mini knowledge database. We also have HubSpot knowledge base.
Yeah. But even Zara's not available 24/7, so that's where this comes in handy.
Sadly, yeah, we need to try and fix that.
Yeah, but I think the key part of this is just that efficiency side of it. So, you know, by getting it, you know, your knowledge base accurate, by getting it right, you know, you're potentially saving time, not just for you, but, you know, for that customer as well, right? That client.
Sure.
And I think, you know, that's such, you know, it's a commodity that none of us kind of, you know, have too much spare of. So I think the ability to, you know, to be able to kind of provide an answer very quickly, I think is really key. Did you notice on the bottom right-hand corner there, Andrew, the HubSpot happiness meter? Yeah, exactly. Right. And they use this across their site. I'm sure you guys, if you've been on a HubSpot website, you'll see this. But essentially, all they're asking here is, did you find what you were looking for? And and I managed to find some data related to this, and this is really nice. So this is again from HubSpot's own data, but essentially, this is where you know, those kind of, you know, the green face or the red face or whatever it is, this is where this kind of starts to play a role in understanding whether you're doing a good job or not, right? And in HubSpot's case, you know, if we go back to that last example, they want to know, was this page useful? Did you find what you were looking for? And by having this kind of helpful rating and unhelpful rating, I think it gives them really good insights, you know? So for example, you know, it looks like here, a lot of people have found some of that content unhelpful. And there's direct actions on the back of that, right? So perhaps you need to modify that content, perhaps you need to create new content, you know, whatever that kind of looks like. So just a kind of like nice use case that I think everyone kind of, you know, can relate to, you know, in terms of, okay, what does this data really mean?
I think you hit it there, because what we've been speaking about a lot over the last 3 weeks is data. You know, what this really gives you is it gives you an inclusive view of that entire customer experience. So, you know, this last kind of piece of the puzzle that we've ran through today is really, you know, almost taking us back right at the beginning of the journey again. So when you have that initial interaction as a prospect, potentially to work with an organization, and you're now right at the very end here, and you're now a customer, and you either want to celebrate being a customer, or you perhaps want to have a bit of a moan about the experience. You know, HubSpot has you covered in that sense. So it's, you know, I think a couple of times this week I've spoken to a few organizations where they currently have a Frankenstein setup, you know, and by that we mean obviously there's, you know, a kind of CRM over here, there's a marketing automation here, there's a service component here, and for years they've been trying to kind of effectively squeeze it all together. You know, and there's challenges in that, and there's cost as well. You know, when you're looking at a kind of cost center as far as paying over here, licenses may be running at different times, and usage obviously may differ as well over time. So I think the beauty of this HubSpot system, and the reason we kind of wanted to do this 3-part series, was to really show that inclusive model, right?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think that's, I mean, you've summarized it perfectly, if I'm honest. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we do have some questions, Amit.
We do. Actually, I want to, before that, I think Rebecca makes a really good point. So, so guys, send some questions in. We're going to deal with a few that have already come in. Rebecca made a point earlier, which I felt makes so much sense. And she said, look, I totally agree with this. When we talk about a brand and revenue, it's not just about the look and feel of a communication. It's every touch point of a brand that leads to revenue. I believe every department has a role to play in this, and you're absolutely right, Rebecca. You know, and I think the companies that really kind of understand this are the ones who are much better positioned, you know, to really kind of implement this, right? And they're the ones for sure that are, you know, providing the best possible sort of customer service. And I think these kind of measurement tools are really important in that process, you know, because, you know, sometimes, you know, there's people who are very, you know, who are not customer facing, but play just as strong a role in the satisfaction of a client than someone who is customer facing, right? You know, and again, it's these kinds of tools that really kind of make a difference. But yeah, thanks for that, Rebecca. Great point. And did you want to pick a question?
We kind of bashed IT people a bit in the past and said that HubSpot doesn't really enjoy the relationship with IT, but I guess it's almost like that IT role where, you know, they don't really get much praise when the internet's on and kind of everything's working and humming away. But obviously, as soon as something cracks, they kind of, you know, feel the full force of the organization to get things right. So yeah, I mean, this allows you just to track everything.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Cool. Do you want to pick a question? We've got a few here, Andrew.
Yeah, so I guess some of these are more about HubSpot, which is fine, as opposed to some question here we'll answer straight away. So, what's the name of the software used for tickets? So it's HubSpot. I think if you missed the beginning there, or basically HubSpot, the service element is part of the software licensing option. So they split these out into marketing, sales, service, and now they have a CMS as well, a web solution as well. So those are broken out into different licenses, and you have the ability to take all of those licenses within something called a growth suite, or you can individualize those licenses and use them as time permits as well. So that's from Raj. And then also here, I think, how can thinking of business as a flywheel improve between sales and marketing? So yeah, I mean, we touched upon this last week actually, where we pulled up that flywheel to from funnel to flywheel. We spoke about this last week, and the fact that as much as You know, the guys over there, Brian and Damesh, spoke about the flywheel a few years ago. We still think that that funnel is still relevant. I guess from a flywheel perspective, really the point to take away from that is it's frictionless. So as long as there is limited or zero friction within the sales, marketing, service process from a customer perspective, the less friction, the more enjoyable the experience. You know, we didn't quite touch upon this. We touched upon it, I think, a couple of weeks ago. But if you look at some of the industry disruptors, you know, like the likes of, you know, Casper, the kind of mattress people, where you don't have to go to a showroom now and publicly lie on a bed, you know, to kind of test a mattress. You can get it. You can get it in through the post, frictionless. You can order it, and it's got a 100-day sleep guarantee. Sleep on it for 100 nights, and then return it if you don't want. So I think obviously there's just less friction there. You want to take the next one, Amit?
Yeah, sure. And we didn't plant this, guys, I promise you. So so Ashraf's asked, we don't have a CRM yet. If we want to go for one being in B2B, what would you recommend? Is it Salesforce or HubSpot to cover sales as well as marketing, and why? Look, we've I'll tell you our experience again. So before we you know, basically partnered with HubSpot, we tried all of these platforms, and it really comes down to, I guess, who's going to use it within an organization, and also perhaps even what you're going to be using it for. And in our experience, user friendliness was such a big point. And that was one of the key decisions as why we went to HubSpot, because, you know, my vision was that everyone within our organization will be using HubSpot. So if I don't have a user-friendly system, it's going to be very difficult for people to do that. Yeah. Also, if you're looking at a CRM, then specifically you're probably dealing with salespeople, and salespeople perhaps want to spend as less time on the CRM as possible. In fact, they probably want to spend no time on the CRM. That's right. And if you go back to our CRM episode, we showed that actually a salesperson doesn't have to live in HubSpot's CRM environment at all. You know, directly from their email inbox, they can copy things, you know, directly into HubSpot. They get notified, you know, if somebody opens their email, notified if someone's opens a proposal, whatever it looks like. So they actually don't even need to go into the CRM to make use of the system. So for me, HubSpot is probably the easiest system to implement. I think it's certainly one of the most cost-effective to implement. But the nice part of it is you don't have to take our word for it. HubSpot offer a free CRM that allows you to kind of really, you know, test whether what we're saying is true or not. So, you know, feel free to go onto the website, download a free or create an account on a free CRM and start using it. And I think you'll get an idea of how user friendly it is.
Yeah, I mean, also just from a comparative standpoint, it's interesting. So there's been a kind of agreement between Salesforce, almost like a borderline gentleman's agreement, that they wouldn't kind of necessarily talk or compete against each other. But the shackles are off a couple of months ago. So now you'll find a lot of articles, even on HubSpot, you know, but even independent sites, obviously, talking about the kind of main differences. And again, as Amit mentioned, it depends where you are in the organization. But, you know, the reason that HubSpot is brought in comparison to Salesforce now is because it has an enterprise layer solution. So it can be from that kind of solopreneur all the way up to enterprise levels. So I think there's a lot out there. G2 have got a good comparative site if you just want to kind of make real comparisons. Or as Amit mentioned, I mean, jump on, get yourself an account, or reach out to myself or Amit, and just we can organize for a kind of demo to show you exactly the kind of fun elements associated to it. I think what's important is, if you do go back to the sales trilogy that we mentioned previously, we talk a lot about the features that we find quite cool. So pretty much CRM is muchness. You know, they're all pretty similar. They do what they're supposed to do, track customers and kind of help you understand and forecast sales. But there's some unique things associated to HubSpot that I think really add value.
Yeah, great. Guys, if you've got any more questions, send them through. I've got one here again from Rebecca. What's next for HubSpot? Where do they see the market progressing, and how will they kind of move with it? So actually, the truth of the matter is, we probably can't reveal too much because we're under NDA as well. So, but what I do know is that they are, there's about 400 plus developers working on HubSpot's platform at any one time. I think that number might even be even bigger now. But what they will be doing is for sure adding more features onto marketing, service, and sales. One of the most recent feature launch or product launches. Actually, there's two, right? Let's talk about. I'll talk about the first one, Andrew. You talk about the second. But they recently launched account-based marketing within the marketing product. So within the marketing software now, account-based marketing, which is phenomenal as a strategy if you're a B2B business or perhaps even selling sort of high ticket B2C products. But they've now created a whole new system within HubSpot that allows you to really understand the connectivity of people within an organization as they make buying decisions. And account-based marketing really kind of is that kind of mechanism that brings all of that together. If you've got any questions on that, let us know. But Andrew, the other second product which I launched a few weeks back was the CMS, right? Do you want to tell the guys about that?
Yeah. So there's obviously been an offering in the past as far as you can build your website in a HubSpot environment. But I think what the real kind of launch of the new CMS is the two options now. So you kind of, they never really approach the enterprise layer, I'd say space. So when you look at things like Sitecore, Sitefinity, some of the large headless kind of CMS environments, which are, personalized content driven as far as the web experience. And they launched that enterprise layer at a price point, which is dramatically lower than what's out there at the moment. So I'd say that they've really polished that kind of CMS offering, whereas in the past, perhaps go back 3-4 years, it was almost like an afterthought, oh, we should do this, but now it's kind of core to their activity. I mean, I think the interesting thing about HubSpot is that there's two things that really astound me as far as new features, innovation. One is that they do listen to the community. So there's a large community now using HubSpot, and what they do is they, as far as moderating forums, the communities, they listen to feedback. They, it'd be great if I could do this. It'd be great if I could do this. So even some of the recent things that we can't really talk about in the sales component, but that's kind of now, as they're moving into more enterprise layer, there's some interesting dynamics that are being released there, and that's all based on feedback. I mean, I remember sitting in a closed session at a partners session a year ago, and actually hearing a question around kind of object handling in sales, and they kind of answered that and built out, and they almost release things without telling you as well. There's kind of fun bits. I think usually what happens in a sales meeting, we'll sit there and go, oh, hold on a minute, I think has anyone tried the new beta version of the pipeline and how it looks? And so I'd say that it's a very progressive community, and they're continually trying to update and kind of be innovative as well in their approach.
Yeah, and I think the user friendliness side is something that they continue to constantly work on. I just want to roll back very quickly to the CMS. This I've actually now built out a site, 2 sites using the new CMS, just because I wanted to kind of play around with it and see what the difference was. I mean, I'm not a website builder. Obviously, we've got a team of people who are much better at it.
You just built 2 websites.
This is true. I can now be a website developer. You're right. But it was phenomenal. So the first website, and it was literally, imagine building a kind of, those of you who've used Wix and things like that, imagine building a Wix site where it's kind of drag and drop. You need a video, no problem. You just drag in the video module. You need, text, you need a form, you need all of that stuff. Very, very intuitive. The difference with a Wix site and something like this, though, is the data that's behind it. So you basically, by just building a site, and it was a 10-page website, but literally took me a day and a half. And that website from day one started pulling in all the data and insights that you just would never expect from a website that's taken a day and a half to build. So you know, again, it's something very, very cool. I think that's the future. And you know, if you want a demo of that, for example, if you're looking to get your website redone, I'd really kind of urge you to look at, you know, the new HubSpot CMS, because it's mind-blowingly good. So yeah, just my kind of experience there. But Andrew, I think we should possibly wrap up there. We've got a few more questions, guys, but I think yeah, I think it's been a good show. We're almost on time, which is nice.
For first.
For first. So yeah, so guys, thank you very much again for you know, for your time today. Thanks for tuning in. We honestly value, you know, the fact that you guys do that every week. We always see new faces. We always see guys who've watched previously and you know, have come back for some more. So yeah, thank you very much. We're very kind of humbled by that, and yeah, we look forward to seeing you again.
Yeah, we're going to be.
Words of wisdom?
I think later on today we'll kind of release what we're talking about next week. But that kind of pulls in the trilogy, and as Amit mentioned, we've now got all of the shows up not only on our own site but up on YouTube. So you can throw us a subscribe, or you can jump in and have a look at the YouTube offering, the website offering as well. So they're all there to kind of go back and kind of pull in on. So yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Awesome. So
Perfect.
I've actually enjoyed that. There you go. I'm gonna make my 11-year-old watch this tonight.
You're gonna say,
to show how,
you need to watch this.
Yeah, just to show how interesting service measurement really is.
That's it. Yeah. Actually, to be fair as well, I mean, guys, we get comments and questions, and they all come in. So that's why sometimes you can see our eyes going getting a bit distracted. But what's nice is that actually this might be one of the most popular kind of thanks. That was great. This was good. So yeah, hopefully there's value there. So thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day. See you later.
All right.
Bye.
Take care.